So, Heretic is a religious psychological horror film about two young Mormon girls who are trapped in the house of a man who challenges their belief. And the thing that I like about this film right from the start is that it always feels like it's challenging. Like, it never feels like it just kind of like settles into like a typical type of like horror thriller about two people being trapped in a house and a psychopath trying to keep them there. Because I kept waiting throughout the film for like that moment for like the grin to drop from the mastermind's face and for him to start like slitting throats and then, like reveal what he's all about. And then like, okay, the jig's up, time to start like killing and torturing. And thankfully that never happens. And to the benefit of the film, I think, because it works for the person doing the trapping here, which is Mr. Reed, played by Hugh Grant. Now, Hugh Grant has kind of like taken this turn from like doing like romantic comedies and dramas into more like horror and thriller type films. And here, I think this film plays to its strengths of just kind of being like a very charming and likable guy, because if you've seen him in films like Paddington 2, he can play up a villain, but he can play up a villain who's very eccentric, who knows how to have like a charming presence where even when he's being sinister and dastardly, you can't help but watch to see what he's going to do next. And he's very much in his element here as Mr. Reed, because he adopts this persona of just being like this kind of like eccentric theologian of like a college professor who is very much engaged with like the topic of religion and wants to like very much like challenge you to the point where like it's scary like how engaged he is in all of this, even when it starts turning dark. So his two victims that he has in this are two Mormon sisters. There's Sister Barnes, played by Sophie Thatcher, and Sister Paxton, played by Chloe East. And they have differing personalities. Like, Barnes is very much more, she feels a little bit more firmer in her faith, and I think that's because she has a bit of like a background that we explore in the film, which gives her a lot more depth. Whereas Paxton is a little bit more questioning and cautious and a little bit more fearful about having her religion challenged as much. It's not so much that she just wants to like shut the topic down. It's that she feels just like a wee bit uncomfortable. Like even she's starting to like pick up some weird vibes when they're invited into the house of Mr. Reed, and it's just like, I don't know if this is such a good idea. Maybe we should play up to what, maybe we should take like the safer route for like, indulging Mr. Reed here. But of course, it's too late for the girls. Like, by the time they're already inside, like they're already trapped. Like the doors are locked, and Mr. Reed just kind of plays it off like, well, the doors are on an automatic lock, so if you want to leave, you kind of got to go through the back doors. But like, you've seen my place, there's a back door. You can go out that way. Or do you? Do you remember if I had a back door? And I love that aspect of Grant in this film, because like, while he does challenge a lot of like the Mormon religion, in fact, there's some downright hilarious moments where he's challenging them and playing it up, where at one point he's comparing the different iterations of religions over the many eras and compares them to board games. And because basically he compares them to like Monopoly, and he basically says that Mormonism is kind of like, like if Christianity is Monopoly, then Mormonism is like the Bob Ross version of Monopoly, which just the fact that he plays it up so earnestly, I think too, it's so funny, but at the same time also scary, because he maintains this tone throughout. There are a few moments where he's a little bit more silent, but those are aspects of silence where he's more just waiting for these two sisters to kind of like deliver like what they think is the right answer, or the manner in which they think they're going to escape. And I love how the film just lingers on all of the challenging dialogue of this kind of psychological mind game, and how Reed keeps posing these different theories to them and then kind of challenges these girls to kind of like shoot these ideas down to see just how much further they can progress into what Mr. Reed is really trying to pitch here, which is that he believes he has like the answer to the one true religion. Now, initially, when I heard like this premise for Mr. Reed, when he says like, if you keep going if you keep going farther, you'll eventually discover what the one true religion is, the way that I did in all my years of study, you've kind of set up the film, I think, for a little bit of failure, because there's no possible way, like, unless it takes some weird supernatural route by the end, I doubt that, like the one true religion is going to be something all that compelling or shocking. And a little bit of a spoiler, it's not a supernatural element. It's more of a psychological element more than anything. But it's a lot like, like those treasure hunting movies. It's not the destination, it's the way that you get there. This is very much the case with Heretic, because by the time it does delve deeper into what Mr. Reed is really doing in his house and what his real sinister intent is, it's an idea that you can understand how he came to that conclusion after all of his studies, but it's more fun to just watch how much further down, like literally going down into his house, that they probe to kind of learn a lot more about Mr. Reed and his beliefs, like at the same time challenging them. Because the thing about Barnes and Paxton is that they're not just like pushovers. They're not like kind of those atheists, or they're not like the Mormons who kind of like waffle about their religion. They're astute enough where they can push back on Mr. Reed, which makes the film much more challenging, because like it's not so much a matter of like, where are we going to find a knife? What blunt object can we use to beat him with? The film does eventually get to that point. If you are wondering, yes, there are moments where they do start attacking Mr. Reed. But the bubbling up to that point is just allowing the challenging dialogue to keep building and building and building. Because I'm sure that some people have probably seen like the trailer. There's a scene in the trailer where Mr. Reed says like, you got to go out the back door, but you have to choose which one you want to go through. And like, this one is belief, this one's disbelief. And which one are you going to go through? And the thing is, in the actual film, even after he does that, he still keeps the girls in the room by keep talking to them. He keeps talking to them a lot more about their religion and how he compares them to other religions that he's found. And Barnes just pushbacks hard. She realizes that, like, look, the things you're comparing here are not comparative to, how we set up our system of belief. It's not quite matching here. There's inconsistencies. She's smart in that way, where she's kind of embraced more for religion, whereas Paxton is a little bit more, I don't quite want to say more naive, but she's more like, she has more pop culture ingrained with her, that she can challenge Mr. Reed. Like at one point she starts like, misquoting, not quite misquoting, but like she's echoing the same sentiments of Mr. Reed in her challenge of philosophy, but at the same time she's referencing like Spider-Man and stuff like that, which actually plays up to what Mr. Reed is doing here, because he actually does compare, like I said, religion to board games, and also music as well, which I thought was really fascinating. So this film is definitely, it's all about atmosphere and just having Grant having this consistent grin on his face and always challenging these girls. And he's got like the thick glasses and the cozy sweater. And he, like I said, he looks like a college professor. He's got that look down pat, and just the way he keeps, offering up challenges and never making it seem like he's a serial killer, but that he's just engaging in an experiment and that you just kind of have to go along with it. It's just frightening, because like even when like the hammer does drop, it still feels like he's teaching a lesson the whole time. There's never a moment where he drops that smirk and that inquisitive, stuffy nature that he has to himself throughout. And just Grant's natural performance with that just works so well for it. So yeah, it's a very creepy atmosphere. Although I do have to mention this. So this is a bit of a weird thing that I feel like I have to mention. Okay, so when I went to go see Heretic, we saw this at the Alamo Draft House, where A24 does most of their screenings. They mainly do them there because there's a live Q&A that happens afterwards. But this particular time, they decided to have a special screening for Heretic, by what's called the immersive experience. Now, I had heard what this was going to be about, because like apparently at one point Mr. Reed deceives these girls by saying, "Oh, my wife has pie in the oven," and they smell pie, but then they soon realize that it's just a candle that says blueberry pie. So I heard that they were going to start piping like the smell of blueberries into the theater, and they definitely were. Like, okay, it's a bit thick, like, but I can smell it. It's like it's a bit strong. Yeah, okay, it smells like blueberry pie in here. And then they brought out actual blueberry pie to everyone at the table. It's like, oh, okay, I guess there is actual pie, which is, I guess, bonus for us. I mean, Barnes and Paxton didn't really get pie in the film, so I feel a little bit guilty eating this in front of them a little bit. But I was surprised. It was actually like a pretty big piece of pie as well. It was bizarre. And at first I thought like, okay, I thought like, oh, was the smell just like the pie that they were baking? And then it was just wafting in there. But then I realized when I got home and I smelled my sweater, it's like, oh no, they pump something in there. Cause like, you know how like you go to a campfire and you can still smell the campfire smoke in your shirt after you're done with it. It was the same thing when I went to the screening. I could still smell the blueberries on my shirt, that I had to wash it immediately after. I don't know. It was a bit too distracting, I think. But I think in terms of like the actual atmosphere in the film, you don't, it might help, but you don't need the blueberry pie for that immersive experience unless you like that smell-o-vision type stuff. Because the film works well enough on its own. I don't think it will be, I think some people might be a little bit dismayed because they don't think because it's not something quite as shocking, philosophically. There is something viscerally shocking by the end of the film with its major twist about what Mr. Reed is really doing. To say nothing of like the little cameo here by Topher Grace playing one of the elders of the Mormon Church, which I thought was kind of neat. He's a little bit of like a red herring because there's like several moments where it seems like there's an out for the characters and then it's taken away from them. Just because like it's satisfying in the way that it keeps the girls locked in the house with like a believable reason, but also keeps the tension mounting as well because like they realize there's no way out, so they have to engage in all of Mr. Reed's mind games, which span from like near-death experiences to simulation theory to the philosophy of control and manipulation, and it delves into so many interesting spots here. That even if it doesn't feel like it's fully exploring these topics as much as I'd like them to, and believe me, they go pretty deep around here, around these topics here and there. But Grant's performance, I think, keeps you locked into it, where you're always constantly questioning and thinking, especially with such a damn good performance. Like this is probably my favorite film, with Hugh Grant playing up a villain. Yeah, on the philosophical and religious level, I think that Heretic does enough to keep you engaged in this trapped atmosphere, and Hugh Grant makes this film. That's pretty much the reason to see this film, and I'm sure it's the reason a lot of people are going to go see it. So yeah, come for Grant's performance, stay for like the deeper questioning of the afterlife and religion and where we're going and what exactly we want out of life with all these deep philosophical questions. So yeah, as a psychological thriller, it's a damn good one.